In this video, we're going to have a look at how to make the right decision when asked to work with a problem involving triangles. We're either going to use the sine rule or the cosine rule. How do we know what to use and when? Because the question won't tell you, it won't say use the sine rule. Okay, so we can essentially branch this off into two kind of flow charts. Are we calculating a side? Are we calculating an angle? This is how my brain works through it. You might work through it differently, but I'm going to try and illustrate how this flowchart will help you identify what you are looking for. Okay, so you need to ask yourself one of two questions. If you're given a problem, you need to determine, are you working at a side or are you working at an angle? If you're working at a side, the question I want you to ask is the angle opposite sandwiched? And this is just my way of putting it. So let's imagine we want to work out this side here. When I say is the angle opposite sandwiched, so let's say that I know the angle opposite. Let's say that this angle here is 30 degrees. I say that that is sandwiched if the two sides from that angle we know. So let's say that that is 8 centimeters and that is 7 centimeters. So I would refer to this as being a sandwiched angle because I have this, like these pieces of information here. So if we're looking for a side and if the angle is sandwiched, then we're going to use the cosine rule. And when we're using this, we're looking for a side, so it would be the lowercase a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. So a positive answer, return the cosine rule. See if the angle was not sandwiched. For example, if we had something like this here, and let's say that this was x, let's say that this was 21 degrees, let's say that this was 7 centimeters, and let's say that this was 64 degrees. Well, the question we ask is the angle opposite sandwiched? Well, I know one of the sides, but I don't know both of the sides, so this angle is not sandwiched. So if it is sandwiched, we use the sine rule. If it is not sandwiched, we use the cosine rule. Let's get rid of this. So if it is sandwiched, we use the cosine rule. If it's not sandwiched, we use the sine rule. Equals b over sine b equals c over sine c. So if you're asked to calculate a side, all you need to ask is the angle sandwiched? If it is, use the cosine rule. If it's not, use the sine rule. But what if you're asked to calculate an angle? If you're asked to calculate an angle, in my opinion, it's actually a bit more straightforward, the question that you need to remember. Let's say we want to calculate this angle here. If we know all three sides, we use the cosine rule. This time, this is the one we're going to use to calculate the side b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc. And if we don't, we use the sine rule. A over sine a equals b over sine b equals c over sine c. So if we know all three sides, we use the cosine. If we don't, we use the sine rule. So essentially, what I would like you to be able to do is for you to somehow internalize both of these flowcharts, which will help you make the appropriate decision. We'll show you how this flowchart can work with one example, but then if you're wanting to work out how to use the sine rule or the cosine rule, have a look back at some previous videos. Okay, so we're going to try and work through this problem here. So calculate the size of angle x. So in your brain, I want you to be going to this side here, calculating an angle. So we need to ask, do we know all three sides? Do we know all three sides? No. And because I'm returning a no answer, that means I'm going to use this sine rule. A over sine A equals b over sine b equals c over sine c. Okay, we need to label our side, so let's call this call this, give me a wee second, apologies, A, B and C. So across from angle A is side A, across from angle B is side B, across from angle C is side C. So we can substitute in. So we're going to have 23 over sine x is equal to 34 over sine 97. And this is just now just working through and working out how to work out this angle. I multiply both sides by sine x. A wee bit closer. One moment, apologies. That should be it. So I multiply this side by sine x, and I multiply this side by sine x, because these would simplify, and we're going to be left with 23 equals 34 sine x over sine 97. We want to get sine x, so we're going to multiply both sides by sine 97. So we're going to have 23 sine 97 is equal to 34 sine x. We want sine x on its own. It's being multiplied by 34. We'll divide both sides by 34. So sine x is equal to 23 sine 97 over 34. So to work out x, we'll do sine inverse of that. And that should be 23 sine 97, close the bracket, over 34. That's going to be 42.2 degrees. Okay, so that was just working through how to use the sine rule to calculate an angle. But importantly, we can fall into one of these four scenarios. Okay, when we're calculating a side or an angle, you need to be confident in how to use that. But today's lesson is all about making the decision. When do I use the sine rule? When do I use the cosine rule? Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you very much.